Welcome to the Peew, the classic edition.
Still at Madison Square Park.
Still at Madison Square Park.
John Simone has left the park.
So, what are we going to talk to you about?
Well, that was just a refreshing trip down memory lane.
Yes, refreshing trip down memory lane.
All those pictures that I hadn't seen in a while. All those names I hadn't heard in a while. And all those faces I hadn't thought about in a while.
Oh, wow.
You know, in general, I hate nostalgia, so I'm not the type of person that's reminiscing about the past very often. Even though a lot of viewers complain that we talk too much about the past. And another
but the other part of them
complain that we don't talk enough about that.
Yeah. And I know they want to hear more about Nelson. Lots of people want to hear about Nelson. Did you know Nelson?
I knew him, but like I never knew him like really well. I was just telling Drusilla this, that I knew Nelson socially, so which meant that I barely knew him at all. And I would see him in the clubs, and I might be like, "Hey, how you doing?" Blah blah blah. And then, you know, obviously I saw him at his house because he would have parties, and they would invite me to come. But even there at the parties, it's not like I had, you know, profound conversations with him to get to know him.
Well, I think if
better.
you saw him at his house at his parties, you knew him. Because I mean, if you were one of the people that he invited to your house, to his house, then you know, there weren't a lot of people. Relative to the club, there weren't a lot of people invited to his house. So if you were invited to his house, then he considered you a friend. And
yeah, and I considered him a friend. I mean, I liked him, and but I just felt like I didn't know him very well. Because, I mean, you know how in the clubs you see people all the time, and maybe you might even invite them over to, I mean, we would invite people to our house when we had parties.
Well, there are different levels. They give one level of themselves at the club, and then at the house party they give a little bit more.
Right, a different level.
And then on a one-on-one they give more. So
right, so like, say, you know, he wasn't the kind of person, he might have been the kind of person that we would invite to our house for a party when we were having a big party or a lot of people coming over, but it's not like we would invite him over to watch TV or something. I mean, we would have, but we just never did.
I would never do that to their house to watch TV, but actually no, it was to watch videos that they made.
Okay.
Like the Police Lady or you know.
Yeah, I just kind of feel like I never had like a lot of one-on-one with him. You know, I would always see him in.
Well, he didn't have a lot of one-on-one with anybody. He had one-on-one with Trade. Yeah. Trade was with him when he.
Well, maybe and in fact, he might have had like a social anxiety disorder, and you know, the video may have been camera may have been part of that, of his way of dealing with that.
Yeah, because he was actually very shy and would rather be behind the camera than, you know, he was actually the kind of person who would have been terrified to be in front of the camera. So maybe he was behind the camera all the time so that he would never be in front of the camera.
But he wasn't always behind the camera. He would often be in front.
I mean, the subject of, you know.
Yeah. I mean, presumably he became more comfortable with the camera as the years went by.
Yeah.
Let's armchair psychoanalyze him.
Well, you know. I don't know.
I know what.
I don't know what we should talk about in the show because I really liked him. He had a well, you know, I don't know what to say that. The times I went over to his house were like gatherings of like maybe 4 or 5, and nobody would be dressed up, and it would be purposely not dressed up because it would be on a night that we're not going out or something. And we would watch. They smoked a lot of pot over there. Everybody smoked pot. I was the only one who didn't smoke pot, and that made me the odd man out. But we would watch home movies, sometimes from like, you know, Atlanta, and like Floyd would come over and like they'd show like Terror 3. They made a series of commercials for horror movies, like slasher films, like 3 minutes each. We would watch those. Like he would premiere them at the house, and make popcorn and maybe barbecue out in the backyard. It was really fun. It was very homey. Well, it always felt very homey. I would go there for Thanksgiving, and there were like, you know, 10 pies and, you know, 3 turkeys. And, you know. But I felt always, Julie and I both felt Well, in fact, Nelson got in trouble for inviting me to Julia the first time because
You got in trouble with who?
with certain other members of the group,
Okay.
and for inviting me and Julie because we were sort of like the kids, and we were kind of made fun of because we were naive, and yet we were very hungry, you know, for it, and they kind of thought that was funny, but Nelson shot them down and said, no, these are the new kids. I'm inviting them over because they're the new kids. They're tomorrow, they're tomorrow, so I'm getting involved in tomorrow's theme. And eventually he helped me win a lot of them over, but some of them never did. Michael Musto actually got back with it. Was actually one of them.
He got what?
Michael Musto was actually one of the members of the group that got mad at him for inviting them.
Oh, okay.
And he thought it was funny because Michael Musto got mad at him, but then the next day in the club, he saw Michael Musto kissing up kids in the club.
When I was at 5 9th Avenue, Fort Gansevoort, on Thursday for the opening reception,
Or actually, he was hosting my birthday party.
One thing that I remembered is that I never went in any of the bedrooms.
Oh, yeah?
When I went to that house, I was only in the living room and the kitchen area.
That's where generally people socialize. You only go up in the bedroom if one of the people who slept in the bedrooms would go up there for something, and you'd go up there with them to help them find it or something, or to do drugs, or to whatever. If it was like something they only had a little bit of and they only wanted to share with you, you went up there. Or if they were getting ready to go to a party, you might go up there with them to like help them get ready, kind of move them along to get them out the door, because they were all famously late for parties. So there would be like a house mother that would like kind of usher them forward, and if you weren't visiting at that time, they might send you up there to usher them forward.
Yep, never went. And then plus none of them ever tried sleeping with me, so I guess that's another reason I never
None of them ever tried
went.
sleeping with me either, but
Well,
I always
never
got
went
the
to the
feeling
bedrooms.
that Nelson was going to at some point.
What?
I always had the feeling Nelson was,
That Nelson was going to sleep with you?
gonna try to.
Oh, try to
I mean,
sleep
it's the
with
way
you?
I met all of them. Haoui Montaug did it. Kyoki and I even thought one night Rudolph was trying to do it, which was like.
How did Haoui Montag try to sleep with you?
Well, he flirted with me at the door of Danceteria, and then when he moved over to Palladium, he let me into the opening, and made a joke about like how it's gonna cost you later, and it was like one of those jokes that like is it really a joke? And then so I thought, well, how much can I get out of this? So I told him I wanted a job. So he told me to meet him the next afternoon at Danceteria. He was Rudolph's assistant at the time. And I went and met them that day, and the safe was open. It had all this money in it. And someone came in the office and said, oh my God, you left the safe open. It has like $100,000 or whatever. And I jumped for the safe like I was gonna take it, and Howie tackled me. And like was rolling on rolling on the ground and like rubbing up against me, pretending to keep me from getting to the safe. I know.
Ew, that's so gross.
And I was thinking, I'll do anything to get that job. And he hired me as a doorman, actually, for Danceteria that day.
And all it cost you was a roll around on the floor.
Well, that's the end of it. So that was the prelude. That was going to cost me something later. So.
Wait a minute. We're going to take a break.
Okay.
And after the break, you're going to hear how else Michael Alig had to put out in order to claw his way up the nightclub industry.
Fuck his way to the top.
And now a word from our sponsor. Welcome back to the Peeew.
So, welcome back.
Welcome back to the Peeew.
So, after Michael gave us that titillating description of his frottage with Haoui Montag in the office floor of Danceteria, now he's going to tell us what came next.
Yeah, so he hired me to do the door of the club, which was, I was still in college and I hadn't had any history in clubs. I was not doorman material. And I was busboy material. And So he hired me, and he told Rudolph, he said, I think we need Michael at the door. And Rudolph said, okay. So he put me on the door. I started that week. I was to start that week, and my friend Stephanie bought me...
At Danceteria?
Yeah.
Okay.
And my friend Stephanie bought me a rose and everything because she knew that I must be like dying because that would be my dream job. So the day that I went into work, do you remember Thomas, the doorman?
Tom?
Fat Thomas?
Was he black?
No. He was a doorman at Danceteria, and sometimes he wore like a Pope's.
Oh, yeah, that fat guy.
Yeah. He went to college with me.
Okay.
And
at Fordham?
Yeah. And this is really weird. He was doing the door at Danceteria, and I guess he didn't want me at the door of Danceteria too because we went to college together, and he used his door position at college as kind of like to like grease the wheels and like get things from people. And I guess he didn't want me doing the door because it would look like anybody could do the door then, you know? So he lied to Rudolph and told Rudolph that I was 16 years old. He wrote it in a note, and Rudolph showed it to me. That I was 16 years old and that they would go to, he said, do you want us all to go to jail? So when Rudolph said he didn't care about if I was 16 years old, because he knew I wasn't 16.
Right, that's very typical of Rudolph. Too.
And so then...
That's even better. He might
right, yeah. So then when that didn't work, he told Rudolph that he would quit if I were working the door. And that Rudolph didn't want because Thomas was kind of a character, and he was known, he was a known character, or known personality in the club scene. And they had a personality at the scene, so to trade him for somebody that Howie wanted to sleep with wasn't exactly a good idea. So he said that he reluctantly would have to take that back, but he would offer me another job at the club. And that's how I got the job promoting parties. But what I really wanted to do was do the door. But in the meantime, between the 16-year-old and the I'm quitting, Thomas hired a bunch of jocks on campus to threaten me and to sit at my table in the mess hall in the cafeteria at school and sit menacingly at my table and like tell me, you better not do anything that makes Thomas mad or we're gonna get you. I mean, it was like, which I did tell Rudolph. I feel like we're both like going back to Daddy, like telling him like what, but it was just a very strange thing to see like that world coming into my Catholic college,
Yeah, like all these
the jocks probably had no idea what they were doing it for.
Why would they even want to go to Danceteria?
They didn't. He just paid some people who looked big and menacing to like do that.
What an asshole.
They probably didn't even know what they were doing it for.
What an asshole.
And then he walked by the table like, I mean.
Very high school.
Very high school. Well, Danceteria was sort of high school. But, yeah, so Howie was very mad about that. Howie wanted to fire Thomas. How dare you fuck with my fuckboy. And then Howie was announced as, he was one of the first people to get HIV in the scene, and nobody...
Gee, I mean, that's a real complicated story because, like, my whole episode with Haoui Montag only went as far as him giving me one drink ticket, and then that was pretty much it. Like, I didn't, he gave me the drink ticket, and it's not like he got anything from me.
Well, he got the pleasure of giving you a drink ticket.
Right, and I didn't even realize that drink tickets existed at that time.
Oh, so he introduced you.
Right, that was the first time I realized that.
See, I used to get in trouble for that all the time, giving drink tickets to people who had never had drink tickets. I was instructed to give drink tickets only to people who are used to getting drink tickets. And I said, well, how are you supposed to form tomorrow's drink ticket people? And he said, exactly. He didn't want me forming tomorrow's drink ticket people. And I noticed that every time I hired people, the new people got less and less and less things than the old people. Like, they would be paid less, or they would be paid in check instead of cash. They would have their taxes taken out. They would, have hours that they had to be there. Like every month or so, there would be more requirements, and the older people would be grandfathered in. they didn't have to do all those things because you could never tell them to do it once you hired them to do, they didn't have to do it. Like, I was like, I cannot tell Amanda that she's not going to get any drink tickets now, and she has to have her taxes taken out, and she's going to pay paid in a check. So then they made a special arrangements for Amanda. They would pay her in a check, and they would take her taxes out, but they would give her a raise in order to pay for the taxes, and they would cash the check at the club to give her the cash. So she ended up getting what she wanted at the club that day. See what a bringer together I am?
See you next time.
Bye.